The alien princess risked everything just to save a single human. Her long, pale hair glowed faintly under the soft crystal lights, and her eyes, a deep shade of violet, scanned the endless halls with a mix of curiosity and restlessness. Today, like every other day, she felt the weight of her title pressing on her shoulders. As the youngest daughter of the Xiathian emperor, she was expected to behave with caution, grace, and obedience. Yet, Liara had never been like her older siblings. While they focused on politics and military strategies, she sought understanding, adventure, and sometimes a quiet escape from the rules of her world. The palace gardens called to her now. Beyond the crystal walls, towering plants with shimmering leaves glowed faintly, and exotic birds with translucent feathers sang songs that echoed like soft chimes. Liara loved the gardens. They reminded her that life, even in a world so controlled by duty, could be beautiful and fragile. She slipped through the hidden passage she often used, avoiding the watchful eyes of the palace guards, and stepped into the gentle warmth of the garden. As she wandered past a pond filled with luminous water lilies, a strange movement caught her eye. Something, or someone, was struggling near the edge of the forest that bordered the garden. Liara froze. At first she thought it was a wild animal. But as she moved closer, the outline of a small figure became clear. The figure stumbled and fell, gasping for breath, and Liara's heart skipped a beat. This was no Xiathian, a human. Liara had read about humans in the Imperial Library. They were weak, fragile, and small, incapable of surviving the harsh realities of the galaxy without protection. To her people, humans were more curiosity than threat, more story than reality. Yet here was one struggling in her own world. He was pale, with dark hair plastered to his forehead, and his eyes wide with fear. He looked no older than 16, and he was exhausted, his clothes torn from some long and difficult journey. Liara knew she should alert the guards. She knew she should report him to the Emperor. But as she looked at him, something inside her stirred. She could not leave him there, not to die in the shadows of her world, not while she could help. Her hand trembled slightly as she stepped closer. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice soft. The human flinched at first, fear clear in his expression, but when he saw her face, the fear remained, but with confusion. I think so," he whispered. His voice was rough and weak, but there was determination hidden beneath his exhaustion. Liara knelt beside him. "You can't stay here, it's dangerous." She looked around, aware that anyone could see her if she was not careful. "I will help you." The human blinked at her, doubt and hope mixing in his eyes. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Liara smiled faintly. "I know enough. You're alive. That is enough reason." She carefully lifted him into her arms, noting how light he felt. He shivered, and she wrapped her cloak around him. As she carried him toward the palace, she could feel the rapid beating of his heart against her chest. She knew hiding him would be difficult, but she had thought about this possibility for years, though never so directly. She had always wondered what it would be like to help someone who needed her, someone unlike her own kind. Inside the palace, she moved through hidden corridors only she knew. Every step was filled with the fear of discovery. Guards patrolled the main halls, but they would never see her here. Finally, she reached a small, unused chamber that once belonged to her grandmother. The room was filled with old furniture, soft cushions, and a tiny window that let in the pale light of the moons. It would be enough for now. She placed him gently on the cushions. "You need to rest," she said. "You're safe here for the moment." The human looked around the room, eyes wide with awe and confusion. Where am I?" "You're in the palace," Liara said, "but not the main halls. You won't be seen here." He swallowed hard. I don't even know how I got here." "One moment I was in space, and the next I don't know." Liara nodded. "You were lucky, but that luck might run out if anyone finds you. You must stay quiet. Can you do that?" He nodded slowly, and for a moment the fear in his eyes softened. Liara spent the next hours tending to him as best she could. She brought him water from the crystal fountains, cleaned his wounds with careful hands, and offered him soft food that would not hurt his weak human body. As he ate, she watched him closely. Despite his weakness, there was something in him, an unusual spark of courage and determination that the Xiathians rarely saw in their own kind. "You are very brave," she said finally, when he had eaten enough to regain some strength. He looked at her with a faint smile. "I'm trying. I don't have much choice, do I?" Liara shook her head. "No, but bravery is rare, and you have it." They sat in silence for a while, the quiet hum of the palace around them. Liara realized that she felt something she had never felt before, a connection not to her family or her people, but to this fragile human who had survived against impossible odds. She could not explain why, but she knew that she would not abandon him. Her thoughts turned to the danger she now faced. If anyone discovered that a human was in the palace, especially hidden by the princess herself, the consequences would be severe. Her family would be furious. The emperor would consider this a betrayal of the highest order. Her life, her title, and her future could all be lost in an instant. Yet she felt no hesitation. Saving him was more important than any law, any title, any expectation placed on her by birth. As the moons rose high in the sky, Liara sat by the window, watching over him. He slept fitfully, occasionally murmuring in a language she did not understand. She leaned back, thinking about the universe beyond her home world, the strange stars, distant planets, and countless civilizations she had only read about. Humans, she realized, were more remarkable than she had been taught. They were small, fragile, and limited in strength, yet they carried a will to survive that could rival even the strongest Zeathians. The night passed slowly. Liara remained awake, listening to every sound, ensuring no one discovered their secret. As dawn broke, painting the crystal towers in shades of pink and gold, the human stirred. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the light. "Where am I?" he asked again, his voice weaker than the night before. "You are safe," Liara said gently. "You have been through much, but now you can rest. I will help you." He tried to sit up, but she gently pressed him back down. "No, not yet. You need more time. You are too weak to move freely." He looked at her, confused but trusting. Why are you helping me?" Liara thought carefully before answering. "Because you deserve it, because I choose to, because someone has to care when the universe seems cruel." He blinked at her words, perhaps not fully understanding, but accepting them nonetheless. For the rest of the morning, Liara stayed by his side. She shared stories of her world, of floating cities, flying ships, and gardens that shone under the light of twin moons. In return, Kale tried to explain his world, though his words were limited. Still, she listened, fascinated by the human perspective, so different from her own. Hours passed, and Liara realized that hiding him would be more challenging than she had anticipated. Patrols moved through the palace regularly, and even a small mistake could expose them. But she refused to give up. She had risked too much already to save him, and now, a strange sense of responsibility and attachment tied her to him more strongly than she had expected. By evening, Kale was stronger, able to sit up and even speak more clearly. Liara had prepared a small meal for him, and he ate with an eagerness that made her smile. There was resilience in him, a stubborn strength that seemed impossible for someone so fragile. She realized with a quiet awe that humans might not be physically powerful, but their courage and determination could shine brighter than the mightiest warrior. As the second night approached, Liara sat by the window again, watching the moons rise. She did not feel fear or regret. Saving him had been the right choice, even if it meant defying her people, her family, and the rules she had been born into. For the first time in her life, Liara understood something important. Courage was not about strength, titles, or power. It was about the choices one made, the risks one took, and the willingness to stand for what was right, even when the universe itself seemed against you. And as she watched over the sleeping human, she knew that this choice, her choice, was only the beginning of something much larger. The morning light filtered gently through the crystal windows, casting soft beams across the quiet chamber where Kale rested. He had slept deeply for most of the night, finally recovering from the exhaustion and injuries that had brought him to Liara's palace. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of the exotic flowers that grew in the palace gardens, and for a moment the palace seemed peaceful, almost welcoming. Liara sat nearby, her eyes watching him carefully. She did not speak, but the simple act of being there, of protecting him, was enough to make him feel safe. Kale stirred, blinking at the light. He tried to sit up, but the effort was painful, and he let out a soft groan. Liara was immediately at his side. "Take it slow," she said gently. "You are not ready to move much yet." He nodded, breathing heavily. "Thank you for saving me," he whispered. His voice was hoarse, but there was sincerity in it that made her heart lift slightly. "I don't even know why you care." Liara smiled faintly. "I care because no one should be left to die alone," she said simply. "It is that simple." For a long moment, Kale studied her face, as if trying to understand what kind of person she was. Liara had expected suspicion or fear, but instead he seemed thoughtful. "You're different from what I expected," he admitted. "I thought all aliens would be, like the stories, cold, powerful, dangerous." Liara shook her head. "Not all. My people can be cruel, yes, but not all of us. Some of us care. Some of us want to understand others even if the rules say we should not." Kale nodded slowly, absorbing her words. He had always thought of humans as fragile, as the weakest species in the galaxy, but now he saw that strength could come in many forms. Liara, delicate and graceful as she appeared, had risked everything for him. That act alone was proof of courage he had never imagined in another being. The morning passed quietly. Liara brought him water and a simple meal, and Kale ate carefully, still weak but gradually gaining strength. As he ate, Liara talked to him about her world. She described the floating crystal towers of the palace, the gardens filled with plants that glowed softly under the twin moons, and the flying ships that traveled between planets like streaks of silver light. Kale listened with wide eyes, amazed at the beauty and complexity of the Zeathian world. "Your world, it's incredible," he said finally. "I never imagined anything like it. Everything is alive, bright, magical almost." Liara laughed softly. "It is beautiful, yes. But beauty can hide danger. My world has rules, laws that are strict and unforgiving. If anyone finds you here hiding in the palace, it will not be seen as kindness. It will be seen as betrayal." Kale's face grew serious. "Betrayal? But I am just a human. Why would anyone care what happens to me?" "Because you are not supposed to exist here," Liara said quietly. "Humans are rare, considered fragile, not worthy of attention, and yet I have chosen to protect you. That is enough for some people to see me as a traitor." Kale looked down at his hands, suddenly aware of how small and weak he was compared to the powerful beings around him. I don't know if I can, I feel useless." Liara reached out, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "You are not useless," she said firmly. "Your courage brought you here. Your survival brought you to me. That is strength, Kale. Strength comes in many forms, not just in power or size. Even humans can inspire courage in others, even in my people." Kale's eyes lifted to hers, a glimmer of hope showing through his weariness. "You really believe that?" he asked. "I do," Liara said simply. "And soon you will see that the galaxy has a way of testing every kind of strength, not just physical." The day moved on, and as Kale regained some energy, Liara decided it was time to show him more of the palace, but cautiously. She did not want him to wander into areas where he could be discovered. With careful guidance, she led him through quiet halls, showing him the palace library, a vast chamber filled with ancient texts, holographic maps of distant planets, and star charts that shimmered like living constellations. Kale's eyes widened as he moved slowly between the shelves. "All this knowledge, all these stars, humans, we've never even come close to this," he said. "How do you even know what to do with it all?" Liara smiled. "Knowledge without care is useless. We study, we observe, we prepare. But wisdom is knowing when to act, and that is what matters most. Sometimes understanding others is more important than power." Kale nodded, trying to absorb her words. He still felt small and fragile, but her confidence in him gave him hope. For the first time in days, he felt that he could survive, that he might even make a difference. As the afternoon light faded, the palace gardens called to Liara once more. She helped Kale to his feet, steadying him as they moved toward the outdoor terraces. The air was crisp and filled with the scent of flowering plants. Birds with translucent wings glided through the sky, their songs echoing softly. Liara watched Kale take in the beauty around him, noting how fragile and amazed he looked. "You are stronger than you realize," she said softly. "Even if your body is weak, your mind, your spirit is capable of far more than you know." Kale smiled faintly. "I hope you're right," he said. "I really do." They walked in silence for a while, enjoying the calm before the challenges that surely awaited them. Liara could feel it in the air. Soon, someone would notice the missing human. Soon, the palace patrols would grow suspicious, and her secret would be at risk. She could not hide him forever, but she pushed the thought aside for now. Today was about keeping him alive, teaching him, and helping him recover. As evening approached, the quiet was shattered by the sound of distant voices echoing through the palace halls. Liara froze. Guards. Her heart pounded in her chest. She motioned for Kale to stay quiet and pressed him behind a crystal column as the patrol passed. The human's unfamiliar eyes and strange appearance would have made him easy to spot, but Liara's careful planning and knowledge of the palace kept them hidden. When the patrol passed, Kale exhaled shakily. "That was close," he whispered. Liara nodded. "Too close." "You must understand, Kale, every step outside this chamber could be dangerous. I will protect you, but we must be careful. You are in a world that does not expect you to survive here." Kale's face grew serious. "I will be careful. I don't want you to get into trouble because of me." Liara shook her head. "Do not think like that. My choice to protect you is mine alone. No one else can decide it for me, and I will not abandon you, not now, not ever." The night deepened, and Liara made sure Kale was safely settled in the chamber. She watched over him again, her mind racing with plans. She knew the patrols would become more frequent. She knew her family would begin to ask questions if he remained missing for too long. And she knew that one mistake could mean the end for both of them. Yet, despite all the danger, she felt no regret. Protecting him was the right choice. As Kale drifted into a peaceful sleep, Liara's thoughts turned to the human spirit. She had watched him struggle, weak and terrified, yet he had survived. He had endured pain and exhaustion and had not given up. That was a strength she admired, a quality her people often overlooked in others. Perhaps humans were fragile physically, but their hearts, their determination, their courage, these were not weak at all. They were extraordinary. Liara's mind wandered to the future. She did not yet know how she would protect Kale from the Empire, how she would keep him hidden from those who would see him as a threat or a curiosity. But she knew one thing: she would find a way. And perhaps in the process, she would discover a truth her people had forgotten. That courage and compassion could be found in the most unexpected places, even in the smallest and most fragile beings. For the first time, she felt a sense of purpose beyond her royal duties, beyond the expectations of her family. Her mission was clear: to protect Kale, to teach him, and perhaps to show her people that bravery was not limited to strength or power. It was a choice, a decision, a willingness to act when others would hesitate. And as the moons of her world rose high in the sky, Liara sat by the window, watching over the sleeping human. She did not know what dangers tomorrow would bring, but she knew that together they would face them. And perhaps, just perhaps, their small acts of courage could change not only their lives but the future of their worlds. The following days were filled with quiet tension. Liara remained vigilant, constantly moving through the palace, checking corridors, and listening for any sign that the patrols were growing suspicious. Kale's strength returned slowly, though each step he took was measured and careful. He began to explore the small chamber she had prepared for him, learning the routines of life in the palace without ever being seen by the outside world. Yet, despite the precautions, Liara could feel the danger closing in. Her brother, Prince Varin, had begun to ask questions about the missing human reports from the outer borders. Though he did not yet know of Kale's presence, Liara knew it would not be long before curiosity and suspicion drew his attention inward. Varin was clever, observant, and ruthless in his pursuit of anything unusual. If he discovered her secret, the consequences would be catastrophic. One morning, as Kale rested, Liara approached him carefully. "We need to talk," she said softly. He looked up, wary but trusting. "The situation is becoming dangerous. My brother is asking questions. Patrols are more frequent. We cannot stay here much longer." Kale's brow furrowed. What does that mean for me?" he asked quietly, fear creeping into his voice. "It means," Liara said gently, "that we will have to move. We must leave the palace at least for a while. I will guide you and you will follow my instructions exactly. If we are careful, we will stay safe." He nodded, swallowing hard. I don't know if I can do it. I'm weak, I'm human, I don't belong here." Liara knelt beside him, placing her hands over his. "Kale, your body may be small and fragile, but your mind is sharp and your heart is brave. That is what matters now. We will move together. You are not alone." Her words, calm and confident, gave him a sense of hope. He realized that for the first time since he arrived in this strange world, he could rely on someone completely. Liara was not just protecting him. She was teaching him that survival was possible, that courage was not measured in muscle or weaponry, but in the will to keep going, no matter the odds. That night, under the cover of darkness, Liara guided Kale through secret passages she had memorized since childhood. The palace was quiet, but the sound of distant patrols echoed through the halls, making every step dangerous. Kale followed closely, trusting her guidance entirely. When a patrol came close, Liara pressed him into a hidden alcove and held her breath, feeling the human pulse against her side, rapid and fearful. "They will not find us here," she whispered after the patrol passed. "We must stay silent and patient." Kale nodded, though his fear remained. The danger was real, and the realization that he was a target in a world he barely understood weighed heavily on him. Yet Liara's calmness steadied him, and he learned to trust in her judgment, relying on her knowledge and instincts. After several hours, they reached a hidden corridor leading to the outer walls of the palace. Liara had chosen this route because it was the least patrolled and offered a chance to escape to the lower gardens and then to the surrounding wilderness. She paused at the entrance, looking out at the distant city lights shimmering under the twin moons. "You must understand something," she said softly. "Once we leave the palace, nothing is guaranteed. We may encounter dangers we cannot control, but we will face them together, and we will survive if we stay careful and trust one another." Kale nodded, gripping her hand tightly. He felt both fear and determination. The human spirit within him refused to give in, even in the face of overwhelming odds. He had survived so far, and now, with Liara's guidance, he was ready to continue. Their journey into the lower gardens was slow and cautious. Liara led the way, pointing out dangers and guiding Kale through paths that were hidden beneath the thick foliage of the alien plants. Strange creatures scuttled in the shadows, but they avoided the princess and her human companion, sensing the confidence in her presence. Kale marveled at the beauty of the gardens, even as he kept his focus on survival. The glowing flowers and softly humming plants were unlike anything he had ever seen, and yet the alien beauty could not distract him from the danger surrounding them. Hours passed and they reached the edge of the palace grounds. Beyond lay the wilderness of the Zeathian world, a vast expanse of forests, cliffs, and rivers that sparkled in the moonlight. Liara paused, scanning the horizon. "The first stage of our journey is over," she said. "But the real challenge begins now. We must travel carefully, avoiding patrols and anyone who might recognize us. Our goal is a hidden outpost, far from the city, where we can rest safely and plan our next move." Kale swallowed hard, feeling the weight of their task. I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. Liara placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze steady and encouraging. "You are ready, you just do not know it yet. Humans often underestimate their own strength. You will learn, you will survive, and together we will make it." The journey through the wilderness was difficult. Kale struggled to keep up at first, but Liara's patience and guidance helped him. She showed him how to move silently, how to use the terrain to their advantage, and how to recognize signs of danger. He began to understand that survival was not about strength alone, but about awareness, quick thinking, and the courage to act when necessary. During one tense moment, a patrol of Zeathian guards appeared on a ridge above them. Liara froze, pressing Kale against the ground behind a thick cluster of luminous shrubs. The guards moved carefully, scanning the area with precision. Kale's heart pounded, and he felt the fear threaten to overwhelm him. Liara's hand tightened around his, a silent reminder to stay still and trust her. Minutes felt like hours as the patrol passed without noticing them. Liara waited until their footsteps faded before guiding Kale to a safer path. "Do you see?" she whispered. "Patience and caution are as powerful as any weapon. We survived because we remained calm and aware." Kale nodded, breathing heavily but filled with a growing sense of confidence. He realized that his human instincts, quick thinking, and determination were valuable in ways he had never imagined. Even in a world filled with beings stronger than him, he could make a difference, and Liara's guidance gave him the chance to do so. As they traveled, Liara began to notice something remarkable. Kale was learning quickly. He observed details in the environment that she had overlooked, noticed patterns in the guards' patrols, and suggested routes that were safer and faster. She felt a mixture of pride and surprise. Humans were indeed fragile, but their ingenuity and resourcefulness were impressive. By dawn, they reached a secluded valley where a small river flowed, hidden from view by towering cliffs. Liara allowed Kale to rest while she scouted the area. The valley was peaceful, untouched by the patrols, and for a brief moment the tension lifted. Kale sat by the river, watching the water ripple in the soft light, and allowed himself to breathe freely for the first time in days. "This place, it's beautiful," he said softly, almost in awe. Liara nodded. "It is, and it is safe, at least for now. We can rest, regain strength, and plan our next steps. But we must remember danger is never far from us. The Empire will not forget, and the moment we are discovered, we must be ready to move again. Kale looked at her, understanding the gravity of the situation. I'm glad you're here. I don't think I could have survived alone. Liara smiled faintly. You would have tried, but you would not have known how. Together we can do more, and you are stronger than you think. You just need to believe it. Over the next days, Liara taught Kale more about survival. She showed him how to recognize edible plants, how to avoid dangerous creatures, and how to move quietly through the forest without leaving a trace. Kale's confidence grew with each lesson, and the bond between them deepened. He began to trust her completely, and she, in turn, admired his courage and quick mind. One evening, as they sat by a small fire, Liara looked at Kale with a mixture of concern and admiration. You have come far in a short time, she said, but we cannot forget the larger danger. My brother will not stop searching, and the Empire will not forgive this. We must think carefully about our next move. Kale nodded, understanding the seriousness in her voice. I know. But I trust you. Whatever comes next, I will follow your lead. Liara felt a surge of warmth. It was rare for her to feel such trust from another being, especially a human. She realized that Kale's presence had changed something within her as well. She had always cared for life, but now she felt a responsibility, a connection that went beyond simple duty. This human was no longer just someone she had rescued. He was someone she could not imagine leaving behind. The next day, they began preparing for the longer journey to the hidden outpost beyond the mountains. Liara knew the path would be treacherous, filled with patrols, unpredictable terrain, and natural dangers. But she also knew that Kale was ready. His determination, resourcefulness, and growing strength made her confident that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they set out, moving cautiously through the early morning mist, Liara reflected on everything they had faced together. The human, once fragile and uncertain, had become a partner in survival. Together, they were learning, growing, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation with her brother and the Empire. And though the dangers ahead were great, Liara felt a quiet hope. They had survived the palace, the wilderness, and the constant threat of discovery. They had learned to trust each other, and that trust, she knew, would be their greatest weapon. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Liara felt certain of one thing. Humans, though fragile, were capable of courage, ingenuity, and bravery beyond measure. And this single human, Kale, might just prove that even the smallest spark could ignite a revolution. The mountains loomed ahead, dark and jagged against the light of the twin moons. Liara led Kale carefully along narrow paths that wound through cliffs and forests. Every step required caution. Loose rocks threatened to give way, and distant patrols moved like shadows across the ridges. Yet, for all the danger, there was beauty in the landscape. The rivers glimmered like silver threads, and the air was crisp, carrying the scent of alien pine and wildflowers. Kale, walking beside Liara, marveled at the world he had never imagined. I never thought I'd see anything like this, Kale whispered, his voice a mixture of awe and exhaustion. It's beautiful but terrifying. Liara glanced at him and smiled faintly. Beauty and danger often go hand in hand. That is what makes survival meaningful. You must learn to see both at the same time. Kale nodded, trying to steady his breathing. The journey had been long and difficult, but he felt stronger now. Each challenge, each obstacle had taught him something. He was no longer the frightened human who had stumbled into the Scifi palace weeks ago. He had learned to observe, to adapt, and to trust Liara completely. As they moved deeper into the mountain paths, Liara paused to scan the horizon. Her sharp violet eyes picked up movement, small lights in the distance, the faint hum of patrol ships hovering above the cliffs. They are closer than I expected, she murmured. We must be careful. Any wrong move and they will spot us. Kale, stay close and follow my lead exactly. He nodded, gripping her hand tightly. The fear lingered, but it was tempered by resolve. Together they moved quietly, slipping along hidden paths and taking cover whenever they sensed patrols nearby. Kale noticed how Liara's knowledge of the terrain was extraordinary. She knew every rock, every tree, every shadow that could hide them from view. Her confidence gave him courage, and he began to notice details he had overlooked before, the way the wind shifted, the sound of distant footsteps, even the faintest glow of patrol scanners. Hours passed, and the journey grew more treacherous. The air became thinner at higher altitudes, and Kale struggled to keep pace. Liara noticed his fatigue and adjusted their pace, offering water and words of encouragement. "You are doing well," she said. "Do not doubt yourself. You are stronger than you think." Kale looked at her, exhaustion and determination mingling in his eyes. I'm trying. I don't want to let you down." "You could never let me down," Liara said firmly. "Your courage has already proven itself. Every step you take is a step forward, and that is all that matters." As night fell, they found a small cave to rest. It was hidden behind a cliffside, invisible from the main path. Liara set a small fire, careful to keep it low, and they sat together, warming their hands. The valley below shimmered under the twin moons, and for a moment the danger seemed distant. Kale broke the silence. "Liara, why did you save me? Why risk everything for someone like me?" Liara looked at him thoughtfully. "Because someone had to. Because it was the right thing to do. Because I could not watch you die and do nothing. Humans are fragile, yes, but that does not make them unworthy. Courage, kindness, and the will to survive, those are things my people often forget. I saw them in you and I could not ignore it." Kale's eyes glistened. I don't know what to say. Thank you for everything." "You need not say anything," she said softly. "Actions matter more than words. We will face what comes next together, and that is enough." The night passed without incident, though the distant hum of patrols reminded them that safety was temporary. Liara used the time to plan their next move. She knew the Empire would not rest, and her brother Varin's suspicion would only grow stronger. They needed allies, a place where they could regroup and strategize. She had heard of a hidden outpost beyond the mountains, a small station used long ago by explorers and diplomats. It was far from the main cities, uninhabited, and perfectly suited for their needs. The next morning they resumed their journey. The terrain became harsher, with steep cliffs and narrow ledges that required careful navigation. Kale stumbled at times, but Liara's steady hand kept him upright. She encouraged him to trust his instincts, reminding him that humans had an advantage her people often overlooked: creativity and unpredictability. "Use your mind, Kale," she instructed as they crossed a narrow bridge of rock over a deep chasm. "Think ahead. The path is dangerous, but it can be crossed safely if you focus." Kale nodded, taking careful steps. He felt the wind whip past him, the abyss below threatening to swallow him if he misstepped. Yet he moved forward, trusting Liara's guidance and his own judgment. When they reached the other side safely, he allowed himself a small smile of triumph. "You see," Liara said, her eyes shining, "even humans can overcome the impossible. Courage is not about strength, it is about determination and the will to act despite fear." Kale's confidence grew with each challenge. He began to anticipate dangers, notice patrol patterns, and even suggest routes that Liara had not considered. She was impressed. The human spirit was indeed remarkable, capable of resilience and ingenuity that rivaled even the most disciplined Zeathians. As they approached the hidden outpost, a sense of relief mixed with caution settled over them. The outpost was an abandoned station, built into the side of the mountain, with a small docking area and living quarters that had long since been deserted. Liara guided Kale through the entrance, checking for traps or patrols before allowing them to settle inside. Once inside, Kale collapsed onto a bench, exhausted but safe. "We made it," he whispered, a mix of relief and disbelief in his voice. Liara smiled, though her expression was serious. "Yes, for now, but our work is not finished. We must plan, prepare, and be ready. My brother and the Empire will not give up easily. They will come looking, and we must be ready to face them." Kale looked at her, determination shining through his fatigue. "I'm ready," he said firmly. "I will do whatever it takes to survive and to help you." Liara's heart swelled with pride. He had grown so much since the day she found him in the wilderness. The human who had once been weak and terrified was now resilient, capable, and brave. She realized that he had not only survived the journey, but had inspired her in ways she had never expected. Over the next days, they explored the outpost, restoring basic systems, gathering supplies, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Liara taught Kale more about strategy, observation, and survival, and he applied what he had learned with growing skill. Together, they devised plans to avoid detection, using both the natural terrain and the abandoned technology of the outpost to their advantage. One evening, as they sat overlooking the valley below, Liara spoke quietly. "Kale, what we have done here is more than survival. We have shown that courage and determination can challenge the mightiest forces." You are proof that even the smallest spark can ignite hope in the darkest places. Kale looked at her, humbled. I never thought I could make a difference, but with you, I feel like I can. You can, Liara said firmly. Humans have a resilience my people often overlook. That is why I chose to save you. That is why I continue to protect you. Together we can face anything. Their bond had grown stronger, rooted in trust, respect, and shared experience. They were no longer simply princess and human. They were partners, allies in a world that expected them to fail. And yet in their unity they found strength. Days turned into weeks as they prepared. Liara sent careful signals, testing the waters, observing how her brother's forces responded. She noted the tension growing in the empire, whispers of rebellion stirring among those who admired her courage and the humanity she protected. Kale learned to observe patterns, anticipate danger, and act decisively. His human ingenuity proved invaluable, and Liara began to see him not as fragile but as extraordinary in his own right. Finally, the day came when Liara decided to act. She broadcast a carefully crafted message to the Empire, revealing the truth about humans, their resilience, and the injustice of persecuting those who were different. She called for understanding, courage, and unity, challenging the old prejudices of her people. The response was immediate and powerful. Some were outraged, demanding her capture, while others were inspired, seeing the truth in her words. Whispers of rebellion spread, fueled by the courage of the human she had protected. Kale watched in awe as the ripple effect of their actions began to change the hearts and minds of an entire civilization. Liara turned to him, her eyes filled with pride and hope. You see, Kale, your courage, your survival, has sparked something greater than us both. One life saved can change a world. Kale smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and purpose he had never known. I never imagined this, he said softly. All I did was survive, but together we've done more than I ever thought possible. Liara took his hand, squeezing it gently. It was never just survival. It was courage, determination, and the choice to act when it mattered most. That is what makes a hero, not power, but heart. As the moons rose high in the sky, casting silver light across the outpost, Liara and Kale stood together, looking out at the world they had changed. The journey had been long and dangerous, filled with uncertainty and fear, but it had also been filled with hope, growth, and the realization that courage knows no bounds. For the first time, Liara felt that her people might finally understand that bravery, compassion, and resilience were not limited to the strongest or the most powerful. Even the smallest, most fragile beings could ignite change, inspire hope, and challenge the course of history. Kale, once a single human lost in an alien world, had become a symbol of courage, unity, and the extraordinary potential that lies within every being. And Liara, the princess who had risked everything to save him, had shown that true leadership is measured not by fear or obedience, but by the choices one makes to protect life and inspire change. Together, they had faced impossible odds, survived the dangers of an alien world, and sparked a revolution of understanding and courage. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, they knew one simple truth. Even the smallest spark can light the way in the darkest night, and one life saved can change the destiny of worlds. The alien princess risked everything just to save a single human,